Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam, Content Marketing Specialist with Schein, and I'll be your moderator. There will be no live Q&A following tonight's presentation. If you have questions after the webinar, please email us at webinars@henryschein.com. Please make sure that your volume is up and any large applications are closed on your viewing device to ensure a smooth connection. This webinar is presented by Henry Schein Dental Business Institute, and no CE credits are being offered. Tonight's speaker is Matt Hironaka. Matt is Chief Operating Officer and in-house counsel for Unitas PPO Solutions. Thanks for being with us, Matt. Over to you.
Thanks, Adam. As Adam noted, my name is Matt Hironaka, and I'm the Operations Officer and in-house counsel for Unitas Dental. I want to thank you all for joining me today to listen to this PPO 2020 year-end update webinar. Like many of you, I'm sure feel I'm ready for 2020 to be over. But I think as we look ahead to the next year and start planning for your practice, that there have been some developments in the PPO world that are worth looking at and determining whether there has been an impact on your practice from those developments or could potentially be an impact on your practice moving forward. To begin with, I think it's worthwhile reviewing the different types of relationships that exist between insurance companies and through network companies, because many of the updates or the developments this year involve those relationships and changes to them. So to begin with, let's look at what network sharing or provider leasing arrangements are, the different types, why they exist or how they exist, and why they can potentially have an impact on your practice. The first type of relationship is a peer-to-peer or insurance companies leasing their provider networks to each other. Now, this little diagram that you're seeing, you have the dental practice on the left and two insurance companies on the right. So the first one is designated in yellow, and let's call that insurance company Principal, or the Principal Insurance Company. Now, this dental practice has a direct contract or has a provider network agreement with Principal and an associated fee schedule, whereby when Principal insured members come into the practice, they receive a discount according to that Principal reimbursement schedule. Now, this dental practice does not have a relationship or a direct contract with the insurance company on the far right in green. Let's call that insurance company the Emeritus Insurance Company. However, because Principal and Emeritus share their provider networks with each other, this dental practice now, when an Emeritus insured member comes into the practice, that Emeritus insured member receives the same discount that the practice provides to Principal insured members. So again, we call these peer-to-peer relationships, or it's insurance companies leasing their provider networks to each other. Sometimes the insurance companies do have a client list or identify on a sheet of paper or somewhere the other companies that they share their network with. Here's two examples here, United Concordia and DHA, also known as Sun Life or Assurant. So sometimes this information is accessible, but there's only a handful that actually do this. So it's important, again, to kind of understand how these relationships work, and if you have information available to you to obtain that so that you can see who the clients are for each pair or which insurance companies lease to each other. The second kind of relationship is through what we call network companies or umbrella network companies. Now, the network companies, they're not payers. For the most part, they do not pay claims. They're network aggregators or repricers. They go out to dental practices and try to have providers contract with them as a network company. And then the network company goes out to the insurance companies, the payers, and says, I have this network of dentists. Do you want to be able to access these dentists for your insured members? The reason we kind of call them umbrella is that there's umbrella companies is that there's a number of payers or insurance companies that fall underneath that umbrella. So it's just kind of a way to distinguish the different kinds of companies. As you can see by this example, the dental practice is contracted with the umbrella network company. Let's call that Connection. And then we have the green and yellow insurance companies underneath that umbrella. Let's again refer to those as principal and emeritus. And now the purple one, let's call it Guardian. So if this practice is otherwise directly contracted with either principal, emeritus, or Guardian, when an insured member of one of those plans comes in to see the practice, provide the service, and the claim gets submitted, and actually gets submitted to each payer, to each insurance company. Again, the network company doesn't necessarily pay the claims. They act as a middleman, and the reimbursement is according to the network fee schedule that's attached to that contract with the network company. Umbrella network companies usually will provide a payer list, and here's just 3 examples of Carrington, Zealous, and the Connection Dental Network. This is only an example of like the first page. Many of these client lists are several pages long. So again, you can see that there's many companies that can fall under each network's umbrella. And these client lists can be helpful in kind of understanding potentially which payers are accessing dental providers contracted with each network. So why or how do these network sharing or provider leasing arrangements exist? As far as the why, insurance companies obviously want their insured members to receive a discount when they go and see their dental provider. And there can be times where in a certain area, an insurance company may not have a sufficient number or the desired number of directly contracted providers that have a fee schedule associated with that and the discount that that provider then agrees to give to those insured members. And so the insurance companies will either enter into arrangements with each other, or they'll access dental providers through the umbrella network companies. And as far as what allows them to do this or how is, if you look at some or many of the provider network agreements that you've entered into, there is some provision that says you agree to allow the company to lease you out or rent you out to other companies. And so that's the why and the how. As far as how these arrangements can impact your practice is, let's again look at another example. In this example on your screen now, again, you have the dental practice and a direct contract with an insurance company. The one in the yellow, let's call that insurance company now Humana. So this practice is directly contracted with Humana, and there is a reimbursement fee schedule that's associated with that contract. The one in green below, let's call that United Healthcare. Now this practice does not have a direct contract with United Healthcare insured members, and otherwise doesn't participate with them through another arrangement. And so when a patient from United Healthcare comes in to see the dental provider, that insured member is out of network. And so the practice can usually receive its full fee. Again, the insurance company may have out-of-network benefits that are paid, and they can, through an assignment of benefit, get paid directly to the practice, or the check may go directly to the patient. Now, this is a scenario where this practice, that's how they want to be set up. They don't want to be in network for one reason or another with United Healthcare. Now, let's look at the scenario where Humana and United Healthcare enter into a network sharing arrangement. So this changes the scenario for that practice, whereas before they were out of network with United Healthcare insured members, but through the lease sharing arrangement with Humana, now the United Healthcare insured member comes into the practice, and the practice is obligated to provide the same discount to that United Healthcare insured member that it gives to Humana insured members. So obviously, this you can see how this could impact a practice. Again, it may not be negative, may not be positive. It just depends upon what that practice it wants to accomplish and what its goals are. But by virtue of this arrangement between these two insurance companies, it has changed that situation for the practice as far as which members are getting a discount when they come to see the dentist. As far as utilizing network sharing or provider leasing arrangements, there certainly can be some positives and negatives. And so it's kind of worthwhile reviewing what these positive and negatives are. In many situations, specifically from the umbrella network standpoint, they can be attractive for dentists to contract with those network companies because they will give a higher reimbursement than that dentist may otherwise be able to receive through a direct contract with the payer or the PPO insurance company. So higher reimbursements certainly can be one of those positives. Through the network companies as well, you can get access as a dental provider to multiple plans that you may not otherwise be able to get through a direct contract, or that you may not otherwise want to do through direct contracts with each individual payer. They can also provide some flexibility in that contracting through a leased network or a network sharing arrangement, participating through that type of arrangement can allow you some flexibility in the future, in that you may later go to a direct contract with the payer rather than utilizing the network shared arrangement. So there are certainly some positives there to these arrangements being in place and utilizing them. They certainly also have negatives, and some of those negatives do include that there's limitations on the access that you may have as a dentist to certain groups that fall under a plan. Some groups, an employer group, for example, may not be willing to utilize a provider who is participating through one of these shared agreements for one reason or another. Also, it may be different according to the plan levels of one payer or another. And so where one patient has a plan level that's excluded when they come and see you as a dental provider because of the arrangement by which you are accessing that plan. And they can exclude specialty types. For example, if you are accessing one plan through a shared network, it may be limited to general practitioners only. A specialty like orthodontics may not be included. So again, there's complexities and complications in utilizing these shared networks that you want to be aware of. And also these relationships change quite often from year to year. We see these changes. Again, one of the reasons why we feel like it's a good thing to provide an update on some of the changes that have occurred in each year. So let's get to the 2020 updates then. And before I do, I want everyone just to remember that, again, we kind of talked about some of these complexities. Remember that they change, and that it's difficult to really stay on top of some of these changes, even for a company like us. And so in looking at this information, I want everyone to understand that if you were intending to kind of utilize some of what we talk about today, that you be sure that you do your own due diligence and talk to the insurance companies or representatives of the network companies to ensure that the relationship will be effective for you, and what other obstacles may occur, or timelines that you need to be aware of, or possibilities that they may not fall into place. Let's talk about Aetna to begin with, because I think Aetna, not only with changes to its network sharing relationships or additions thereto, has done some somewhat novel initiative this year. So to talk about the changes in relationships first, Aetna has a relationship with Emeritus as of 2020, and also with Principal this year. So as an Aetna directly contracted provider, if you're not otherwise participating directly or through an arrangement with Emeritus or Principal, that arrangement could fall into place, and now you may be seeing Emeritus and Principal insured members in your practice and giving them the discount that you give to Aetna insured members because of this newer relationship. Something that's been significant, I think, in respects to many customers that we work with in enrolling them in plans is that Aetna's relationship with Sun Life has ended for newly enrolled providers as of the midpoint this year. That's significant because oftentimes it can make sense for a doctor who's not contracted with Aetna or Sun Life or otherwise participating with them to utilize Sun Life to participate with Aetna. And again, that can be from a reimbursement standpoint or just overall kind of managing participation. So it can be significant. Our information is that dentists that are currently contracted directly with Sun Life and utilizing that relationship to participate with Aetna insured members is unaffected at this point. But again, that certainly could change. Aetna also leases their network out to many other companies. Obviously we've talked with Meritus but there's a Guardian, Carrington, Connection, Dynamax. Those are all the network companies. And again, there's limitations there. Aetna can also lease providers to, again, Meritus, Guardian, and Principal. So I think it's worth pointing out here at this point as well that some of these relationships where insurance companies lease to each other may not be reciprocal. They may be only one way, in that Aetna may lease providers from only a certain number or specific other insurance carriers and then lease providers to others. So it's important to be aware that those situations occur as well. One of the real, I think, significant things that we've seen as far as Aetna from just a participation reimbursement standpoint as well has been that many offices that we have been involved with or made aware of have received notices from Aetna that Aetna will be reducing their current reimbursement schedule and then offering an investment payment to that office in consideration of accepting that reduction in reimbursement schedule. We've seen some, offers that are in the, tens of thousands of dollars and just offers that are a few $1,000s. Again, it's really, I think, dependent. Again, this is my opinion, understanding of the situation, dependent upon how many claim dollars that practice is probably submitting to Aetna. And that probably goes into the calculation of what the investment payment is. But I think it's significant in that the practice really needs to kind of understand how many patients they have with that now, their claim dollars, because we've seen also a significant reduction between what that practice is currently receiving in reimbursements and what the reduced offer is. Just an example of that, we've seen in this chart here, we have a practice's top codes, and then we were looking at the in-network reimbursement as a percentage of their UCR for each one of those codes, and then doing an average of what the in-network reimbursement is currently and what the reduced offer would be. So in this case, you can see it's 13% reduction across this practice's top codes that Aetna is asking that practice to accept in exchange for some investment payment. United Healthcare has also expanded its network sharing arrangements between with other carriers. As of this year, Guardian and United Healthcare have a network sharing arrangement. It should be effective this fall, and I think it's been effective for many practices already. United Healthcare and Beam also have a relationship as of summer this year, and then FedVip is now accessing United Healthcare's proprietary network beginning in 2020 or 2021, as we understand. And the reimbursements to FedVip should be according to the commercial PPO reimbursement schedule. So we've certainly seen some changes with FedVip beginning in 2018, and they're expanding the number of PPO insurance commercial networks that they've been utilizing. So now United Healthcare joins that. It's also been an observation that we've had this year that United Healthcare seems to be working to increase its proprietary network, so directly contracted providers, and reduce reliance that it may have had or has on network companies. Again, those companies like a Carrington, a Zealous, Connection. We've seen that happen specifically in states like New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But I imagine that it seems like that's an initiative that United Healthcare has moving forward. Again, United Healthcare has relationships with other insurance carriers and also the network companies. And so they may lease dental providers who are otherwise with Carrington, Connection, Dentamax, Guardian, Premier Dental Group, and Zealous. And then United Healthcare may lease its network providers to many other insurance companies. For example, in California, Blue Shield of California utilizes the United Healthcare network. And that's significant in the state of California because that is one of the, I think, more limited options that dental providers have to access Blue Shield of California. Guardian and Emeritus have a relationship as of spring of this year. And as we've noted, the Guardian and United Healthcare relationship. And Guardian can lease providers from Aetna, Emeritus, and then the network companies. And it may lease providers to Aetna, United Healthcare, and Premier Access. So again, there's been some changes or additions. It seems like there's a number of insurance carriers that are trying to expand their access or the access that they give to other insurance companies. United Concordia, as we know of this year, there aren't that many significant updates. However, I think it's worth noting here because United Concordia, it seems like over the last couple of years, has been really expanding its network, and we continue to see healthcare or dental providers who were not otherwise participating with one plan or another, seeing the insured members of other plans come into their practice and receiving the discount that that provider otherwise gives to United Concordia insured members. Again, this can be, depending upon your practice, something that you interpret as being negative or a positive. It just really depends on whether you were seeking access to additional insured members. Maybe it is a good thing for you that you are now attracting more patients to your practice. It could also be that you don't want to have those insured members in your practice, given what the rate of reimbursement is or your current participation mix. So finally, there's been a couple new plans that we've noted as of this year. Beni and Level are two of them that present somewhat newer concepts in the dental insurance industry. Their target has been kind of the mid-level employers, and premiums, rather than being paid to the insurance company, the employer puts a certain amount into each employee's fund and then can customize that plan for each individual employee. So Beni and Level have been accessing dental networks, utilizing some, at least one, maybe two umbrella network companies, but they've also been recruiting for their proprietary network. So it could be that they've reached out to you already to try to directly contract with you to be a network provider for their plans. So now that we've kind of looked at the changes that have occurred, again, there's probably been others. These are some of the ones that we've noted as being more significant, especially for the many practices that we work with. What are some of the steps that you can take? I think there's a couple, and it really, the first step goes into identifying how you're participating currently. It can get confusing, and these changes sometimes may not be recognized immediately. So we think it's important that practices kind of go through the steps of really identifying how they participate. And you can do so by auditing your EOBs. A couple of the first steps is just to make sure that you have the most current reimbursement fee schedules from each company that you're contracted with. And then looking at those EOBs and matching them up with the reimbursements that you've been receiving. So remember, when you look at it in the EOB, the header or who's showing in the header of that EOB may not necessarily reflect who's actually paying the claims, because through these lease network or network sharing arrangements, one company can act as the attached fee schedule because it has a contract with the provider. And so that's how payments are being made according to that contracted fee schedule, but they may not be paying the claims. So you want to make sure that you've identified who the payer is for each claim, and that can help you identify the plans that you're participating in that you may not otherwise thought you were participating with previously. So be sure that when you receive your contracted fee schedule that you are cross-checking it against what you're being paid according to the allowable amount on your EOB. It's also important that when you see something that doesn't match up, that you do contact that insurance company and find out, again, why it's not matching up. Is it just an incorrect payment, or is it because a new relationship has arisen that you weren't aware of previously? You also want to make sure that you investigate what options you may have. It could be that with a new relationship that has evolved, that you have an option to either opt out of that relationship, or that you want to make different changes about how you're participating currently. So auditing EOBs, I think, is a really important step for all practices to really continue to understand how you're participating with each plan that you either want to participate with, or evaluating different opportunities that may arise. So it's another important thing to really look at the notices or the mail that you receive from the insurance companies. I know that many practices are inundated with information and emails or physical mail that you get from the insurance companies, and some of these notices go on the side of the desk for a while. When you see a notice that contemplates a change in how a relationship may affect your practice, you want to pay attention to it and really make sure you understand what that impact for your practice may be. It's also important to do a production summary and look at your top codes, because this will help you kind of compare the reimbursements. And again, for most practices, 35 and 25 codes make up the majority of revenue for your practice. So you can use that when analyzing EOBs and confirming the reimbursements that you're receiving from each payer, and that it does match up with your current reimbursement fee schedule that's connected to that participation. To that vein, we do think it's important, and steps that you can take are looking at your office fee schedule and seeing if there's changes that need to be made to it. One of the things that when you're looking at EOBs, and if you see a reimbursement doesn't match up with what you were supposed to be receiving according to that fee schedule, it could be that your UCR is lower than what you are entitled to receive according to that reimbursement schedule. We have seen that with practices where their UCR is set lower than a reimbursement amount from one or more of the payers that they participate with. So we encourage practices to review their office fees at least every 2 years, if not annually. I mean, as we've seen this year, events can occur that impact the cost of providing the high quality care that you provide to your patients. And so ensuring that you're taking account of the increase in costs, as well as understanding that your office fees do have a correlation to PPO reimbursements, and ensuring that you're continue to set your office fees at a competitive level is important. So I think those are 2 steps that you can take. And I want to also talk about some other steps that we recommend. And really, this goes into what we do for our customers. And obviously, it's what we recommend that all practices do. And the office fee analysis is one of those first steps. But also, again, I talked about looking at your production summary and really analyzing what your top codes are and utilizing those top 35 or 25 codes when you go through evaluating the reimbursements that you receive from each payer or the fee schedules that are associated with your network contracts. And then map participation and compare those reimbursements. Again, you can use the EOB audit to help you confirm how you are participating with each plan. Are you directly contracted with the payers, or are you participating with a payer through a lease network, a pair-to-pair lease network, or through an umbrella company where there are multiple payers who fall underneath that umbrella. And to really use that for multiple purposes in your practice, it can be a really beneficial thing in making sure that that you maintain that current map of your participation. And then go through and compare your reimbursements. Again, this is what we do with the practices we work with. We confirm how they're participating, whether it's direct or through a network or lease provider sharing arrangement. Look at the top codes for that practice, the office fee associated with each code, and do that for the top 35 codes, and then come up with an in-network reimbursement percentage across those top codes for each payer, and look at what the average is or what the competitive rate is. And if there's ones that are on average lower, why are they lower? And that really then sets you up to go through and negotiate reimbursements with those payers or those network companies that you're contracted with. Many of the payers are willing to engage in negotiations, and using your map to understand what options you have and looking at your fee schedule comparison for your practice and seeing what provider or what payers are reimbursing you, maybe higher than one that you're currently talking with or engaging in negotiations with, can be a useful tool. Again, you want to always evaluate your overall participation in the reimbursements you're getting. It can be meaningful for your practice. Negotiations, as we see in working with our customers, negotiating with one payer, and then we use this form to evaluate those offers and looking at across their top codes, what their current reimbursements are, what that offer is from that payer, the dollar increase and the percentage increase, and then doing just a little projection on what that increase in revenue will be by taking the top 35 codes and doing them 10 times each under that new fee schedule, what that dollar amount would be. It can be significant for your practice, can be really meaningful from a revenue standpoint, and even be the difference from having a good year to a bad year. If you have gone through the process of negotiating reimbursements and maximizing what opportunities there are for your practice to increase that PPO revenue. Adjusting how you participate or utilizing the shared networks that exist can also present really good opportunities for many practices. Here's just an example again of when we look at comparing a direct contract with an insurance company and a networking option that is available and practical for the practice, and what the increase in reimbursements can be. Again, doing just an evaluation of the top 35 codes and comparing the current direct contract fee schedule with an available networking option, and then what the projection in revenue would be by completing those top 35 codes under that higher fee schedule 10 times each. Again, when it comes to adjusting participation, utilizing lease networks, it can be difficult, and it needs to be done with care, and it's a confusing process at times, and we want every practice to understand that it can be difficult to do, that you need to really understand what you're doing and talk to representatives if you're going to engage in this. Understanding the changes that have occurred, and also understanding that because one shared network relationship may exist, it may not necessarily exist for your particular practice or in your state, or what exclusions are associated with that relationship and the timing of it. If you were directly contracted previously, if it's a possibility, or how long it may take for that relationship to fall into place. So we certainly recommend understanding all the facets of it and doing so carefully. I appreciate everybody jumping on this webinar and taking the time to join me today. as we began, it's been a difficult year, but we're optimistic about the new year. We think that there's still really good opportunities for dental practices. And we hope that today there's been some information that can be useful to your practice, and that we wish you all the success in the new year. Finally, just want to thank our partners at Henry Schein for making this webinar possible, and for those individuals specifically who helped put this together and produce it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Matt, for that great information and sharing your insights with us. And thank you, everyone, for attending. If you would like to schedule a complimentary consultation with the Unitas team to discuss specific PPO participation and opportunities that exist for your practice, go to unitashsd.com. If you have questions that we were unable to answer in the presentation, please email us at webinars@henryschein.com. The link of tonight's webinar will be sent out later this week via email. On behalf of Henry Schein Dental Business Institute, thank you again for attending. Have a great night, and we hope everyone has a safe Thanksgiving.